What's going on, fam? Super excited to be here. Welcome to Joy Stays Free. Welcome to my page. So I'm super excited for y'all to be here. This is Talk Free Thursdays in the STayFree studio. So I'm super glad that you guys could be here. There are some fun changes coming up. So I'm excited. Just for a few different things that are coming. So if you have not, I haven't made this announcement, but if you have not went over to get merch from freeconqueror.com, you definitely want to go ahead and do that. There's some new pieces that are going to be coming out in a little while, so look out for those. I'm super excited for y'all that are here. We're going to talk about transparency, vulnerability. We're going to talk about humility. So I hope y'all are excited to talk about these different topics. They are difficult topics. They're hard topics. But these are things that we need to talk about, because if we don't, we end up in predicaments we typically don't want to end up in. And y'all know here we like to talk about staying free. We have to talk about those different things that not just keep us stuck, because I feel like we talk about that a lot. Like, people say that a lot. And we talk about things that keep us stuck, but no, it's not just about what keeps us stuck. It's about those habits that we have. So I'm going to put in here transparency. We're definitely going to put this in here. Transparency, vulnerability, what's going on. So to be transparent, like we toss that word around a lot, right? We got to talk about, what does it mean to be transparent? What does it mean to be vulnerable with people? And how can you be humble? And I think these are three topics that need to get discussed, because right now it's like a social media wave with people who are not as transparent, not as vulnerable, especially when people want to talk through, all the different things that they're going through in their life. But there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between what goes on online and what people see, and then what people experience in person, and then who you are to yourself. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this here so people know what we're talking about when we come in. So transparency, definitely share this out with a few people so that people can hear this message, because it's better for y'all to be here live so that y'all can ask questions and engage and interact. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. I am doing well. Y'all let me know how y'all are doing as well. I am doing great because there's so much work that goes into me thinking about the topics that I want to talk about with y'all, right? And when I think about those things, I love to share pieces of my story. I love to share those things that really got me through, because I don't want to share something with people that I have not experienced myself, because it kind of becomes that secondary source. Y'all are doing great. That is awesome. So transparency for a second. So the things that I've gone through in the past few years, I mean, so many different things have taught me how to be transparent. They've taught me how to be vulnerable. And I pulled up a few definitions because I wanted us to be really crystal clear about what we were talking about. Not everybody can be very clear about what transparency is, right? So when you think about transparency, what do you think of, right? I know back in the day, some people were thinking of, the thing that posts in the back, right? It's like a transparent background. You can see through it. And that's exactly what people talk about when we talk about transparency. And so to be transparent is easy to perceive or detect, having thoughts, feelings, or motives that are easily perceived, open to public scrutiny, right, of an organization or its activities, right? There's a physics definition, transmitting heat or electromagnetic rays without distortion. And in computing, there's another definition about functioning without the user being aware of its presence. But basically an adjective as transparent, allowing light to pass through so that the objects behind can be distinctly seen. And I feel like transparency is such a topic that we have to talk about now, because most of the time we're presenting things to others that are not distinctly seen. We're presenting things to others and there's a wall there when you engage with people, when you encounter with people, because I know everybody likes to talk about everybody else, but what is that old quote? It says, small-minded people talk about other people, and people who are thinking, who are forward thinking, they're not talking about other people. They're talking about the next moves they're going to make. They're talking about how they can better themselves, because really the only person you're responsible for at the end of the day is you. We are responsible for us. So here, when we talk free, we can't talk about anybody else. We got to talk about us. And I've had a few people approach me like, hey, how can we talk about these different topics? I personally can't talk about other topics, because unless we deal with us, like Michael Jackson is like, man in the mirror. Like, unless you deal with you, the world's not going to change. And the reason why other people are falling into what they're falling into, for other people to talk about them and leaving themselves out to public scrutiny, is because of lack of transparency, lack of vulnerability, and lack of humility. And actually, this probably is a backwards way to talk this through. I really kind of had it down with the humility first, but since I threw it out there, we'll start with transparency and reading that. It's super essential for people to see you, and it's important for people for you to be able to shine your light through so that people can see the light in you. It's so important for that to happen, because people can read you. Whether you think they can read you or not, they see you coming a mile away. And you can put makeup on it. You can, put some cologne on. You can get the beard going. You can do whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, whatever's on the inside is going to come out. It's going to come out. Pressure is going to make it come out. Heat is going to make it come out. Anything that you're going through, sometimes we trip up and things spill out, right? So in all those different arenas, when you think of a container and what it holds, your heart and your mind, your emotions, you're a container. You're holding the experiences that you've endured. You're holding things that have happened to you in the past. You're holding trauma. You're holding all these different things. Whatever's on the inside of you is going to come out eventually. It's going to manifest itself in a way that is disgusting to others. It can spill out in blowing up in an argument with other people. And as y'all come in, look at the topic, because this is what we're talking about. How can we be more transparent? How can we be more vulnerable? How can we be more humble? Because we could love to talk about everybody else and what they're doing and how their trip-ups look on social media and what their stuff looks like. But to be very honest with us, we're not going to use these cutesy little kindergarten ways of, oh, when you have one finger pointing to others, you got three pointing back at you. To be straight up honest, how many times do we look ourselves in the mirror and say, I got two eyes looking back at me? There's a mind that I have to take care of. There's a heart I need to take care of. This is why we have to talk about staying free here. When we come here on this live, we got to talk about us. It's not us condemning one another. It's us doing self-evaluation and getting the tools in the arsenal so that we do not stay the same. We cannot stay the same. You can always begin to grow. You can always move into the next thing. You can always move into that next field. You have to. And so transparency is essential to your growth. You cannot move into the next phase of your life. You don't need to move into tomorrow without looking yourself in the mirror and being transparent. First of all, letting your light so shine so that other people can see what you're really about, but being so cognizant of the fact that there is something in you that not only needs to get to the world, but people can see your stuff. Straight up. People can see right through it. And when you look at you, you take a step back and you say, hold on, I'm going to look at me in the mirror every single day, and I'm going to check me. I'm going to look at myself, and I'm going to say, Joy, let me tell you something, because sis got a toot with herself, okay? Because I like to talk straight with me. I don't like people beating around the bush with me. If it stinks, you need to tell me, straight up. If my attitude stinks, if I'm off, you need to tell me, straight up. And trust and believe, I've had people tell me that all throughout my life, my adolescence, different things that were going on in my life, people would check me. It didn't always feel nice, but we have to have an accountable circle so that when we are being transparent with people, we allow other people to see through, right? So I want to give a visual for a second. When we talk about transparency and we read the definition out, easy to perceive or detect. People should be able to know what you're about when you walk up. They shouldn't have to guess. It shouldn't be foggy. You know how when your fogginess comes through, just like my daddy, absolutely. It runs in my blood. What's up, bro? So it comes through. People know that your glass is foggy. If the glass of your emotions, your motives is foggy, they know that it's foggy. If the glass, like, you know how when you're driving and it's kind of rainy and it's foggy, it's like, dang, I need to turn the defrost on. Or hopping out the shower, oh, defrost, like, let me go ahead and wipe the mirror. That's because things are foggy in you. We know we shouldn't have to have guesswork when somebody's approaching you. People should know what you're about and why you're about it. And guess what? People can smell the crap a mile away. We see the foggy mirror coming. And most people just go the other way. Some people will check you on it. Some people say, oh, you might want to wipe that down a little bit. But most people won't. They'll just keep it moving. Or they'll stay and try to figure out what's behind it. And to me, that's manipulation. That is the best form of manipulation. When people want to keep people guessing and all that guesswork, that's too much work. We're all adults. And everybody has enough on their plate. No one needs to be guessing who you are, what you're about, what you do, why you do it. We don't need to be doing all that guesswork. Be transparent with people. Show up the way you're going to show up and be who you say you're going to be. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with you, and whatever's on the inside, people going to see it anyway. So either it's going to spill out and spill over, or you're going to check yourself, clean your mirror, and be transparent. And when we can see what is on the inside of you, if you don't like what you see, and other people don't like what they see because it's detrimental to humanity. We're not talking about, people seeing things that they don't personally like. Oh, I don't like how, she wears her hair. I don't like how he talks or whatever. We're not talking about preferences. We're talking about things that are detrimental to other people, where you begin to be the toxic person in the room. No one can approach you when we ask you something or we say something to you. We can't check you on your stuff. We can't call you to the carpet. No one can say, you got a little something on your face. No one can say that to you. Why? Because you're not being transparent and we got to do all this guesswork. Well, none of us have time for that. And for all of us who want to stay free, don't go around trying to guess what people want to put out as foggy mirrors and foggy glass. Don't do that. Because when we do that for other people, we're sitting here, we're wasting our energies trying to say, what do you need? What do you need? And like I said, I'm coming from personal experience. That's how I was being manipulated. It's like when somebody says they're going to do something bad, they're going to threaten or whatever it is. And then it makes you say, oh no, please don't do that. Don't let people manipulate you like that. Because that's seriously how manipulation works. Things are presented to you and put on the table so that there's guesswork, so that you have to dig. It's like the person in the corner and you always have to be like, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And the person says nothing. And obviously something's wrong. The glass is foggy. So let's just all do ourselves a favor. Put this tool in your arsenal to stay free. Be transparent with other people. And when people are not being transparent with you, it's completely okay. You put it out there and you say, hey, bro, hey, sis, what's going on with you? I noticed that there's something a little off. Let me wipe the smudge off, whatever's going on. And they go, nothing's wrong. Okay, I'm here if you want to talk. Boundaries, leave it at that. It's a wrap. Because what I'm not going to sit here and do and guess and guess and guess, because what you're doing is you're manipulating my feelings and my resources. And we don't have time for that. Because what we could be doing is working through the issue that you don't want people to see, and we're cloudy and we got it all like covered up. We could be spending our energy and time asking questions and building and working through that issue, praying for one another, reaching out to one another and spending our hour doing that instead of doing the guesswork. Especially for our couples. And I can say this because I used to be married. I was in a relationship for over 12 years and I was married for 9. So I can speak to this straight up. I'm like fully down with marriage. I'm completely for it. But let me tell you something. If you walking through the house, slamming dishes, slamming stuff, and you're not telling your partner what's going on, you need to stop. Don't do it. Just be honest. And if your partner is doing that, ask them, present the boundary. Hey, babe, what's going on? Are you okay? How can I help you? Do you need some help right now? Are you off? Is something going on? Are we doing this thing again? If you get or nothing and silent treatment, that's manipulation. Don't fall into it. Okay, I'm here when you're ready to talk. Leave it at that. There's no argument. Just walk away. I'm here if you're ready to talk. Go take care of the kids. Go take a shower. Do whatever you need to do. Tell the person you love them and keep it moving. But we fall into that trap all the time because it's manipulative. All right, boom, that's transparency. Vulnerability. So let's go to this definition because I want to talk about what it's like to be vulnerable, because sometimes I think people get these a little bit mixed up. Transparency, again, is people seeing into where you are and you being able to show people what it is you're dealing with, right? They're not actually in the moment with you, but they can just see you coming, right? Vulnerable, it's another adjective, susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm, okay? Vulnerable to predators, as an example, of a person in need of special care, support, or protection because of age, disability, or risk, abuse, or neglect. We talk about vulnerable populations, like leaving, a child is vulnerable if they're out in the middle of nowhere by themselves. They're vulnerable to illness and sickness and different things like that. Socioeconomic things leave you vulnerable as a demographic to particular things. This is of a partnership, liable to higher penalties, either by convention or through having won a game toward a rubber. I don't know what that really means, but basically, when you think about vulnerable to predators, because I want to kind of leave that out there for a second, because for those of you who don't know my story, I had a season of my life where I was in a very toxic relationship and it was abusive for a season of time. The adjective to be vulnerable, I looked at this and said susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. Now, when we're transparent, a lot of times we're not transparent because we feel vulnerable when we are transparent. And that's the reason why a lot of us are not being transparent with ourselves and with other people, because it leaves us open. Okay, so we talked about the window situation. So think of your windows being up and cloudy, right? Like lack of transparency. This is your windows are down. So if there's a threat that's coming towards you, right? Like we're on social media. I can't get to y'all. Y'all can't get to me. Like, right? However, if we're standing next to each other, now I'm vulnerable, right? Now I'm open. Now there's something different. And a lot of times we're like, oh, even with our partners, I was transparent with you and you hurt me. No, we were vulnerable. So let's use our language in a way that is easy for us to understand. I'm very visual, so I like to learn visually. A transparency is being able to see in, see out. We just kind of perceive a perception, but it doesn't really leave anything to be hurt by or to be hurt by someone, right? Being vulnerable is you are open to attack. You're susceptible to something happening that may leave a negative effect. And I think that's the reason why we're not transparent with each other, is because it leaves us vulnerable. It leaves us open. And when you're open with somebody, when you're sharing those deep things, those secrets, those things that you don't want people to know, it's kind of like those skeletons in the closet. You open the closet, that's different. Somebody can know you got skeletons in your closet, but I may not know what those skeletons are. You open that closet and now that's vulnerability. Now we know what the skeletons are. Now we're vulnerable to public ridicule. We're vulnerable to public attack. Your vulnerability means being open to that particular consequence you're afraid of happening. So again, we're not talking about other people. We're talking about us. How are we leaving ourselves open to attack? Now, I'm going to talk about both sides of this because I do believe it's very essential with people you're close with. You should be vulnerable with them, because there's a level of trust where when I open my closet and there are skeletons in it and they begin to fall out, I can trust you enough to say, thank you for being vulnerable with me. And something that we all need to learn is a little bit of empathy, to be able to sit in the closet with the person and be in there with the skeletons and say, I'm going to hold your hand in this closet. I'm going to help you clean the closet. That's empathy. We don't have empathy. We like to open people's closets for them, expose people, let the skeletons fall where they may, and then ain't gonna help them clean it up and be like, oh, that's messed up, and walk away. That's ridiculous. It literally is like that. And I literally think of a high school situation. I don't know if people used to do this in y'all high school, but I'm a public school kid. Like, boys being crazy and they would just pants people in the middle of the hallway. Like, that's real juvenile. But we literally do that all the time. We want people to be vulnerable, but we don't want to do anything about it. So people can't be vulnerable with us because we don't want to do anything. We just know that you just want to see what's in my closet. That's it. So on both ends of the spectrum, if you want someone to be vulnerable with you, you need to develop a level of trust with that person to say, I am here for you. I'm going to communicate with you in a way that is trusting, that is loving, so that I know that, so that you know, I can communicate with you and say that you will know that I'm trustworthy. You can trust me with what's going on in that closet. You can trust me with what's behind that window, with what's behind the glass, behind the curtain. It's okay. I know it's something back there, but you can trust me with that. How many of us are trustworthy enough with the secrets of those around us? Because sometimes some stuff don't need to be exposed at a certain time. And sometimes we need to walk people through opening closets and letting things out. But a lot of times we're having a hard time because we know that other people are not trustworthy. And a lot of times we don't trust ourselves. So then we end up in these predicaments where we're not helping people. This is a way we can stay free. Once you know that there's something behind someone else's door, once you know that someone else has something going on, it is up to you to either stand there and say, I'm here for you, to pray for you, to walk with you. I don't need to know what's behind the door to pray for you. I don't need to know what's behind there to stand with you, to give you resources. Don't just ask people stuff. Don't ask people to open up closets and pull down windows and open up shades just for the heck of it. Ask people to be vulnerable with you because you have the capacity to do something. And here, I'd like to say, I hope that y'all have the capacity to help somebody else stay free. Somebody needs to put that in the chat, stay free. So you all have the capacity. You have the tools to help somebody else stay free. So don't just ask somebody to open up the door on everything that's going on in their life just for the heck of knowing, just for the sake of it. Why? Because most people know that you're not trustworthy with their secrets. You're either going to tell somebody, you're either not going to do anything about it, right? Most of the time you just want to know. You may judge them. You're not being vulnerable yourself. There's a lack of trust and a lack of empathy that I feel go into vulnerability. Put stay free in the chat if you're hearing this. Like, I feel like that's exactly where we need to grow. We can't just see each other's junk and smell each other's junk and smell ourselves all the time. But we really have to take time to help people clean out their closets. That's the hard work. That's the hard stuff. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's when true friendships are built. That's where true marriages are built. When I see your stuff and I can help you walk through it. Now, on the other side of that, if someone's offering you, and we know us, right? Someone says, I see there's an area that you're not being transparent about. Would you be willing to let me in and open the door, put the window down, let me see what's going on in there so that I can walk with you? Now, that takes risk because you're not sure if the person's, trustworthy or not. But if you found that the person's trustworthy and you're not sure because of shame or guilt or embarrassment and you're afraid of the consequences, I urge you to open the doors to those who you know you can trust. If someone is trustworthy, they've proven to be trustworthy, or even if it's like a counselor or a doctor or a pastor or a friend, a family member who you know you can trust. And I've done this before. I've opened up my closet to let people in. And when I tell you, I've had people literally step over my skeletons or be like, sucks to be you, and walk away. People have done that. Wow, that's pretty messed up that that's happening to you. Never heard from them again. Don't call to check on me. Don't want to know how I'm doing. Don't recognize that I'm hurting. It is a dangerous place to stay free in this way. And when I tell y'all, you have to be ready sometimes for the consequence that comes behind that. But you have to be committed to staying free enough to knock on every single door to find out who's going to help you open yours and clean yours out. That's hard. That is so hard to trust people who you thought were going to be willing to help you clean your closet out, to walk through those things that are going on in your life, and sometimes they don't help you. So it's hard. But you know what that tells you? That it's time, that season's over. Because right now, for me, that season sometimes is over. Sometimes it can be resurrected, but it would be an indicator that that person is not assigned to this season. It's a good indicator that that person is not assigned to walk you through those things. And unfortunately, sometimes your stuff hits the street and those consequences that you fear do come on you, but now it's open enough for you to deal with. And you can deal with it with grace. And now in a place of humility, which we'll get to in a second, you can say, so what? The consequences come, but you know what? I won't be bound by fear. I am going to be free. I am going to let these things happen. I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. And I'm definitely going to walk through this because this is not the end of my story. And that was me. I was like, this is not the end of my story. This is not the end. When I dealt with church abuse, I was like, I'm not leaving the church forever because I know the God I serve and I know who saved me and I know that my faith is real. So just because I'm dealing with these clowns doesn't mean that basically I'm just leaving my God forever because I know who I serve. Did I join another church? Absolutely. And because I did that, I ventured out time after time after time looking for another church home, not because I was looking for a church, but because I know that I have something to give to God's body in the local setting. There's purpose for the local church. I know that it's looking different right now, and there's plenty of other things I love to say about what the local church looks like. You know, for those who are Christians and believers in Jesus and followers of God, like, there's something to be said about what the church is going to look like now moving forward. But when I tell you God has redeemed and restored every single crazy thing that happened to me in the previous community that I was a part of, he restored it right here at the church that I'm at. Why? Because I was obedient and I took a risk. And I said, I'm going to go to this church anyway. I took a risk. It's risky when you're not sure whether you should serve at a particular church after being burned doing something else. The same job. It's risky. It was risky. The job that I have now as just my basic 9 to 5. Love my career. But to be honest, it's risky because of the experience that I had previously when I worked the exact same type of job with the same industry in another city, in another state. I said, is this going to be the same? Are they going to try to run me ragged? Are they going to want to, be extremely demanding on me the way my other supervisor was, who was extremely manipulative and abusive and toxic? That stuff we got to look at. And the question is, what separates those that stay free from those who end up bound is the main motivation to move forward. Are you going to step forward and say, I don't care what the consequences are. I'm going to face them head on. Because a conqueror is brave. A conqueror cannot be crippled by shame. A conqueror cannot be crippled by fear in the midst of danger. And that's why y'all are conquerors. And I'm going to say it every single time because that's what this community is. You are a conqueror. And because you know that about yourself, you're able to utilize these tools in every single area and you're able to stay free. Because that's what I believe for you. That's what I pray over you. And I know for a fact that it doesn't matter what the consequences are. Fear will not keep your mouth shut. It will not keep you bound. It will not keep you in a toxic relationship. It's not going to keep you from that business idea. It's not going to keep you from pursuing that promotion. It's not going to pursue you from starting that ministry. Fear will not cripple this community. I truly believe it. Why? Because y'all got the tools. You have the tools. You are a conqueror, and with God, you're more than a conqueror. So let that sink in. There's nothing that anyone can do to you when you are left vulnerable, but you know who you serve. When you know where your allegiance lies, when you know who you belong to and you know your identity, there's nothing that anybody can do to you. So what if I'm vulnerable? I have the weapons that I need to protect myself. I have the weapons I need to move through the fiery darts and the arrows that are being thrown at me right now. Because this war has to end. This battle has to end. And I'm going to come out victorious. That's what you got to tell yourself. So we talked through transparency. We talked through vulnerability. Let's talk through humility for a sec. All of these things take a lot of humility. And I mention this because with vulnerability, it takes a level of humility to even open yourself up to allow someone in the way they are. To allow someone to hear you, to believe that someone, to trust someone with your heart, even that business venture, to trust someone with that. Oh, your dreams. Oh, I'm so reluctant sometimes telling people what I want to do and what God has placed in my heart. And just for a second, don't open up that closet to everybody because some people are going to do you harm. And if your senses and your spirit tell you, no, that's not a person you need to be opening up to, don't do it. Not everybody is allowed to be let in. And I think that needs to be said because I don't want to mention just be vulnerable to anybody. Don't just leave yourself open for attack because those who you know will do you harm, do not open yourself up to them because that's just more room for you to be bound and be in chains and locked up in bitterness. Now, this I think is pretty interesting is that transparency and vulnerability were adjectives, something that describes a person, but humility is a thing. It's a noun. A modest or low view of one's own importance, humbleness. Now, that's just the basic definition. But I don't think that that's the full definition, right? Getting low. And I think that some people think that humility, I think that's what I'm saying. I want to read off the basic definition because the humility that I think people think it is that you being subservient to other people and subservient to toxicity around you. Negative emotions, negative environments. That's not humility. That's actually false pride. So humility is you being not just seeing yourself as humble, right? But to be humble is to not exalt yourself to a place that makes you above and beyond someone else's basic rights, right? So if you and I both deserve to breathe, I'm not going to walk around and be like, I deserve to breathe more than you. However, a lot of us are doing that right now. I deserve this more than ... and we compare ourselves. So it's not about low self-importance in the sense that you don't see yourself important at all. But it's that all of us have the equal rights that we all were given by God, straight up. You deserve to breathe, so do I. You deserve to be free, so do I. And when we see each other as equals, and we recognize that the gift that God has placed on the inside of you, I can applaud and I can cheer because I know that God has something for me and he also has something for you, because you are God's workmanship created in Jesus to do the good works that he prepared for you to do beforehand so that you can walk in them. That is phenomenal. That's out the Bible. That's phenomenal. There are great works that are prepared for you to do, and all you got to do is walk into it. You're built with something. Identity is such a huge piece of this, because if you know who you are and you know whose you are, you can walk in a humble state. You can walk through life not exalting yourself above other people, saying my stuff don't stink, or walking around thinking that, you're untouchable, being haughty, looking down on other people, feeling as though you're not going to reach back for those who are coming behind you, who genuinely want some leadership, who genuinely want to ride with you. You're not too good for anybody. None of us are. We are not better than anybody else. And I know that seems extremely elementary, and it seems very black and white and very plain. But a lot of times we are walking through life thinking that we're untouchable. So we make decisions as if no one is watching, as if no one's coming behind us, as if no one can see us coming a mile away. We can't do that. We talked a few weeks ago about legacy. You cannot walk through life thinking that somebody's not watching you. Somebody is watching you. Somebody is watching. And no matter who it is, whether it's a mentee or a fellow coworker or someone in your ministry or a child, somebody is watching your life. And they want to know how you're going to make that next move. They want to know, oh, they were vulnerable. They walked through the consequences. Now what are they going to do? Are they going to shy away from writing that book now that their stuff is all out in the open? Are they going to be like bad talking other people now that their stuff is all done? But this person made me da-da-da-da-da. Or are you going to own your stuff, step up into your truth, and say, I don't care what anybody says about me. I'm going to stay free from other people's opinions. If you need to apologize and you need to do that, you need to repent, you need to do it. If you need to be honest in your opinion and say, you know what, I'm not ready to apologize. I'm still being worked on with my humility. We need to be honest about that kind of stuff. Honesty. Let's talk a little bit about pride, and then we're going to open it up for questions. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the question box. I do question time after we do the message, which is completely cool. Questions are free game, so feel free to answer. Open any questions that you like, because I like to answer questions here, and I like to hang out with y'all and interact. So definitely put some questions in the question box if you have any. Pride will basically cause you to think that you're in a place that you're not. It is the worst blinder. For you to believe that you're in a better state of being than you really are is so dangerous. It's literally like being blindfolded and just walking through life, and you end up going roundabout into like the wilderness somewhere, and then you walk to a cliff and you're there and you're blindfolded. That's like pride. That's exactly what pride does. Humility says, I may have this blindfold on, but I'm going to ask along the way, hey, is anybody out there? Hey, is anybody there to help me, to guide me along the way? Those blind spots are so tricky. And we cannot, when we talk about, like people seeing in and being vulnerable, the spots that we don't even know, sometimes it's good to let people in so that they can reveal the blind spots. And when you have someone reveal blind spots for you, don't shun them. Kind of bounce it off of yourself. If you're self-aware, you can look yourself in the mirror and be like, am I a judgmental person? Dad, did I say that a crazy way? I definitely cheated on this, so I definitely need to fix it. Y'all, I'm telling you, being honest and being upstanding and being forthright is going to reap more benefit and blessing in your life than being shady and being gray and being crazy stupid. Because we see what the results are, and most of the time all we do is shake our head and go, But to be honest, how many of us are truly humbling ourselves every single day before God and saying, this is what I need? And this is why we have a need for God. I feel like this is truly our need for God, is because it keeps us humble, knowing that there's something better than us, a person higher than us, a being that's better than us, and can see and has understanding. So instead of us going through life blindfolded, not knowing where the heck we're going to go, we can call out to God and say, God, I need your help. I can't see. No one around me can see down the future. Only God can see that. So it's humbling to submit yourself to a mighty God, to submit yourself to a God who's alive, who can actually talk back to you. And every time we have this conversation, I'm going to challenge people. I'm going to dare people. Try the living God. Call out to the living God and say, hey, God, if you're alive, if you're a living God, I want you to talk back to me and make yourself known to me, because I'm not afraid to make that challenge. I love that challenge. Call out to the living God and find out if he won't answer you. I love asking that question because he will, because he's alive. So humility, in a sense where we're looking to other people to give us direction, how can people all on the same playing field give you direction? Why do you think when planes are coming in, you have people on a high tower? We talked about the watchtower a few weeks back. Same thing with a lighthouse to let ships know where to go. There has to be someone with a higher perspective than you that can direct you and lead you and guide you. That could be a coach, but to be honest, your coach is still a human. They can't see 5 years down the line. You could go to like a prophet or a seer or somebody who can kind of see the future, but they don't got the whole picture. They don't know the beginning from the end. Only God knows the beginning from the end. So if you want to pursue and find out, not just know the beginning from the end, because that's not what I'm saying here, but it takes humility to submit yourself to a living God who you know is actually going to be able to check you. That's tough. Nobody likes to be confronted. Nobody likes that. We don't like confrontation. We don't like when people check us. We don't like to be vulnerable. We don't like it. But when I tell y'all this is the way to stay free, I am so serious, because this is how I've stayed free. This is how I've done it. I've humbled myself under the mighty hand of God. And for those of you who are actually Christ followers, who are following the way of the Messiah, Jesus, Yeshua, if you are following his ways and you're a disciple, when I tell you fasting, prayer, and eliminating the things of the world is the way that you keep yourself humble, that is a primary way to keep yourself humble. I told people 2020, as long as I've been a follower of Christ, 2020 was the year I fasted the most. I had no idea I had fasted that much in my life, ever. And I can talk about it now because it's basically over. But 2020, I had fasted almost every season. People would declare a fast when the pandemic hit, and I was like, okay, is the fast over yet? Fast would be over for everybody else, but it wasn't over for me. And I kept feeling the Spirit of God saying, no, you need to keep fasting. Okay, you can stop fasting now. 2 weeks later, I'm fasting again. I'm like, what the heck? Because my understanding was actually a little limited. I just thought it was like for consecration, like setting yourself apart for God and all these different things. And I learned about fasting and I knew it and I practiced it occasionally, but it wasn't essential to me seeing clearly. And I don't even know why that was a thing. You don't know what you don't know. But the Spirit of God really revealed that to me. Out of my crisis, he was like, now that you've eliminated toxic behavior, now that you're in a place where you can hear me clearly, let me show you what I can really do. And when I tell y'all 2020 was a bomb year for me, like, no diss to anybody whose year was crazy last year, but spiritually I grew. My roots grew so deep in God last year because I had to humble myself before God. And a lot of times when you're confident, people think that you need to humble yourself before them, and that's false because they're not God. They may know some things. They may have a few years on you. They may have, some coaching skills on you, whatever it is, their expertise, some degrees. But I'm going to tell you one thing. They are not God. So know that you humble yourself before the mighty hand of a living God who can actually speak back to you and give you direction, opposed to a God that cannot talk back to you. That you're just hoping and wishing and throwing things out there and hoping that he's gonna or she's gonna pull you with every which way and give you a sign, and hoping and praying that these different things will happen. People making images for themselves and not knowing where it's coming from, but you made that. I don't want anything that I've created. I'm not submitting to anything that I've done, because I know that I can't always be transparent, vulnerable, and humble. I'm not always on my A game. So why do I want to worship something that I created when I can't even get it right half the time? And that goes for everybody. So we honestly have to take a second and say, how can we humble ourselves? Just be honest. Put everybody on the same playing field and say, I'm not going to walk through this life without direction. I'm not going to walk through this life without guidance. I'm going to stay free. I'm going to confront my stuff. I'm going to confront whatever actions that I'm dealing with so that I can get out of this mess, whatever it is, and deal with the stuff, deal with my trauma, deal with my past, this current situation, my relationship, so that you can grow and so that you can be better. That's what we want. We want that here. So you are a conqueror. You are more than a conqueror. And I just want to encourage us all. Be transparent. Let people see you coming a mile away. Y'all know what it is. Stay free. Like, this is what it is. This is what you're going to get. And anybody who actually physically knows me knows this is basically who I've been for the past 2 years of my life in talking about staying free. I've basically been the same person. But people who've known me in the past 5 years have said to me, you have made such a crazy change. We see such a light in you now because of the bondage you were in. So for me, this stuff is not fake. This is stuff that's real. I was not the light that I am today. My light was not shining. It was dim. I was just some coals, basically warm on the fire. I was not burning. I was not burning for my purpose. I was not burning passionately for my God. It was hard because I allowed things to come in and I was not staying free in the sense that I was allowing these things to silence me. I was allowing toxicity to shut my mouth and to not let me pursue my purpose. But when I declared to myself and said, God, I want to humble myself before you. Please release me from this so that I can move forward. And he was like, whatever those consequences are you going to accept them? And I said, absolutely, sir. Yes, I will. And I did. Because we don't have time. We don't have time to waste our life on things that keep us bound. We cannot do it. We must stay free at all costs. And that is my petition to y'all. Stay free at all costs. Stay free. So, questions. This is question time. Transparent. Let people in. Let people see what you're really about. Be vulnerable. Let those people in that you can trust and who can be empathetic. And I want you all to be those people too. We got to be trusting people. And if you know me personally and you need to reach out, you need to DM me. I'm a trustworthy person. Trust me. Reach out. If you need prayer, that's what we can do. If y'all got prayer requests, we'll pray right here on live. That's something I've had several people ask me to do. They're like, yo, we love when we get to pray with you. Let's do that. We should open up some sort of prayer call or something like that. If y'all want to do that, if y'all want prayer, we should do it because it's important. And I don't got to see what's behind the glass to pray for you. I can pray. I know my God is going to answer. I know my God answers me. So I don't have any questions about that. Questions. Let's do question time. Let's do it. I love it. It's super fun. Questions. Lastly, be humble. We got to be humble. Humble yourselves. Keep yourselves all on the same playing field. Don't think yourself of anything better than anybody else. Treat people like humans. Be compassionate. Be kind. Be empathetic. Love people. That's what we really need to do. We need to love people. And submit yourself to something higher than you. Something greater than you. I dare you to do it. Because you'll be surprised at the level that you'll go to after that. Your life will be so different. Submit yourself to God and find out what happens. Just try. I'm always into that. No questions? Y'all were super quiet tonight. For those of you watching the replay, the comments are mad silent. I want some questions. I was super excited for question night. I was like, yeah, let's do questions. Okay. So y'all know if y'all don't have no questions, we're going to end it here. So I'm excited for y'all. I got some really cool things coming. Second quarter's coming up for anybody who is keeping track. April, May, and June for second quarter. If anybody's tracking their year like I am this year. First quarter's pretty much up, 25%, pretty much done. And I'm excited that the second half of the first half of the year is on us, right? Easter's coming up. I'm super excited about that. There's some cool things coming in April. And the warm weather is coming. So I hope you all are able to be out there and stay safe. If there are no questions, we will end here. So I'm glad that y'all have been here with me. Until I see y'all next time. every Thursday at 9:30 here on Instagram. I'm super excited that y'all have joined me tonight. I hope that you got some tools for your arsenal. And until I see y'all next time, yo, stay free.